Welcome to the Find Your Voice, Change Your Life podcast with psychologist Dr. Doreen Downing. Listen in as Doreen interviews people who felt they didn't have a voice or who suffered extreme speaking anxiety. You'll hear stories about how they struggled to speak up, what they did to find their authentic voice, and the confidence they now feel to speak up and make an impact. If you want to get started right away to find your voice, download Doreen's free 7-step guide to fearless speaking at doreen7steps.com. And now, here is Doreen.
Hi, this is Dr. Doreen Downing. I'm host of the Find Your Voice, Change Your Life podcast. What you get to find here, and by the way, thank you listeners for showing up and liking the show that we put on every single week. And I know you get fascinated and you keep coming back because of every week there's somebody new that gets to talk about their life and either the struggle around having a voice or being able to speak up, or what we're going to get to hear probably today, a little bit about what it's like to perform as a musician. But that's not really the main point here. It's just we'll see if it comes up. Hi, very much. I'm very excited to have a conversation with you, Iris.
Well, and I'm excited to be here, Doreen. So thank you for inviting me.
Yes. Well, you wrote a few notes, so I'm going to give the audience a little hint about who you are and what you love and what your passion is about, and
Sure.
what they might be able to find if they look you up on social media. Iris Goldfeder is a longtime entrepreneur with more than 25 years of success in the digital marketing field. That's, you said something about this, and I can't wait to read it, so I'm going to read it right now. Iris's
Okay.
passion is to help her clients grow their businesses, and her motto is, I meet you where you are. Iris firmly believes that if you're not online, you're not an option. And that stands out to me today for people to listen to, is that having a voice and being online is part of how you get seen, how you get heard. Iris is passionate about social issues and giving back to the community, and is president of Unmasking Lafayette, a local organization that she co-founded with a friend. And Unmasking Lafayette is committed to the goal of unmasking social issues in her community.
Yeah.
Well, that's frontline stuff. When Iris isn't doing all of the above, she is a professional musician and loves spending time with her crazy pups, Skylar and Piper, and her amazing wife, Heather. And that's just a a few drips of what you're all about, I'm sure.
Yes.
So usually I'm going to do a little bit different today, folks. Usually because I'm a psychologist, I get real curious about early life. I do want to spend a little time on
Oh,
that.
there was
But
trauma there for sure.
I want to start with your business called Gas Stove Creative. Tell us about that first.
So we're an all-in-one marketing solution. And we became an all-in-one marketing solution because, we used to do websites and SEO and social media and kind of stop there. But I have a client, who needed like a lot more. And it was like, I need this. Can you do it? And I was like, yeah. And I need this. Can you do it? And it was like, yeah. And then I realized that I have all of the tools to be that all-in-one marketing solution. I have video production. We do podcast production. You're going to be on, mine tomorrow. And we do this for our clients. We do promotional items. If you would have asked me that one, I would have been like, no, but now, we're doing that. And so our goal is that if there's somebody out there that doesn't want to deal with like 10 different people, 20 different people to get their marketing done, they can get everything done right here.
Oh, Iris, I love that I started that way, because I think it gives an overview of how skilled you are in so many ways. And it has something to do with voice, helping
Yeah.
people get their voice out there.
Yes.
And whether it's online or video or even just writing is a voice, I think, a presence.
Mhm. I think
Great.
writing is easier for some people because they're not, when you do video, you're exposing yourself. It's like being on stage, right? I mean, you're showing up and people are looking at you, and it can be intimidating. I remember when I first started doing video, it was right before the pandemic, and Kofi, who's my producer for my podcast, and he's also my local, videographer, said, you should be doing video. And I was like, I should never be doing video. I don't have, I thought it was like you had to look like Kaylee Cuoco or, be
Uh-huh.
beyond beautiful and, all that. Not that I don't think I'm pretty. I think, I'm good looking, but not model, esque. And then the pandemic hit. And I joined Nina Farip has this really great it was a video challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to do a video every day
Yes.
for the month. And I did it for 2 months. And as the months went on, everybody looked like crap. Like, because you couldn't get your hair done, you couldn't do all the things. And then I had my body rate great thing going through here. And, and I found that it didn't matter how I looked. What mattered was my message. That was the important thing. And so once I got past that, now video to me is nothing. It's like, okay, because how many Zoom calls have we done in the last 3 years? Like thousands. So,
Well, that's exactly how this podcast started. I was part of a 30-day challenge, and somebody said, well, if we interview each other, then we check the box on a video for one of the day or 2 days. And this was way before, not way before, but it was right at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. And it wasn't anything I thought of as saying, oh, gee, I want to do a podcast because I've got a voice and I have a message. It was just easy.
Mhm.
And as a psychologist, I love finding out more about the puzzle that's the person that I'm with. So let's go. Nice segue. Puzzle. You started somewhere. You started in a family, and that we come into this world wah wah wah, goo 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 gaga, and we are either loved and received, or there might be some way in which we aren't fully grounded into, hey, I'm glad to be alive right here, right now, because everybody is around me. So where were you born, and what was your family like growing up?
That's a mixed bag. So I was born in New York. And I was born into a broken family. My mother and father, I was a surprise or an accident, depending on the day, childhood was hard. It was definitely hard. And I suffered trauma. My grandfather molested me for a year from, I think, 7 years old to 8 years old. And I unpacked something last year with somebody that my response while that was going on was to run away. And that paved the groundwork. Like when we uncovered that, it was like every decision that I've ever made in my entire life, from relationships to jobs to anything, fell into place, and it made complete sense. It was like, oh shit, that's why I did that, because I was going to run, and I had abandonment issues. Right. And so, I would make people leave me before I would leave, because I knew I wasn't worthy. So I'm going to push you away.
I know that
because you're going to
strategy.
leave me anyway. Right. So let's just
Yes.
get it over with.
Uh-huh.
And now I'm the luckiest woman in the world.
Yeah.
But that was a challenge too, like getting where we are. The first couple of years were kind of hard for me, because I was like, she's going to leave.
Yes. Yeah.
And 20 years later,
Yeah.
she hasn't. So,
Well, it takes 20 years to get through this, our thick walls, our thick skins, that we are loved. I am so glad you were able to tap back in and then also be so articulate about the moments, the arriving in a broken family. I think that that is such a visual way for the listeners to hear that sometimes we have no choice. We come in to
Mhm.
what is already existing,
Yeah.
and that's what we get. And but it also is possible that, yeah, the abuse or the neglect or the whatever goes on for those early years for us, what I love is that we have such resilience. And even though you talked about having walls and keeping people at a distance, that's my strategy, was my strategy. We still have a full life ahead of us where we can find people who help us go inside and discover that aha. I love when you went, there it was, aha.
Yeah. I mean, and it was a complete like, and I, I remember when we uncovered it, it was like, oh man, like it was just like, when you watch a movie
Mhm.
and people start playing their whole life over, it's usually like right before they die, right? It's like you see everything, but I saw every scenario, everything. And I was just like, oh my God, it all makes sense.
Mhm.
Now I know I made that really bad decision and it was, I made really bad decisions, but I made the bad decisions coming from that place of trauma that I didn't know was trauma. I thought it was just my path and okay,
Uh-huh.
that,
Yeah.
but being healthy now and looking back on it, it was like, oh, you dork,
Mhm.
but we learn, right? And I'm in a really healthy place and thank you. So
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, one thing I'd like to move into now is this idea that what we talk about is voice. And what I'm getting is that this, uh, I'll just call it unconscious or subconscious or just
Mhm.
out of awareness, let's put it that way. What led you to make those kind of choices that you're saying all lined up and you understood? Was there, I mean, I think that there had to be some kind of inner guidance that made you, or you heard something. So it feels like there must have been some kind of voice saying, go this way, not that way. And this way meant the pattern, I guess.
Yes. Well, and I think it was not deserving more,
Hmm.
feeling undeserving of, because when you
Hmm.
hear your whole life that, you know, if you go down that route, you're never going to amount to anything. So, I was talking on my podcast yesterday and it was like, you know, you can't be a musician because there's no future in that. And yeah, you may be good, but no, you're not going to do that. Or, um, here's this opportunity, but you shouldn't go for it because you know what? You don't deserve it. You're not worth it. So things like that. And then I remember, you know, my mom was like, you need to be a secretary. And I was like, I never effing want to be a secretary. She was like, well, look at me. I'm like, I am looking at you. And I never want to be a secretary, and it was hard, but at least knowing that, and I don't know where that strength came from to be able to say that because it was very hard back then. Um, but I think that, uh, you know, man, I think it's finally knowing your worth. My first relationship was abusive. I was with her for 5 years. She came home pregnant, obviously not mine. And I stayed. And I stayed because there were two reasons. I stayed because I didn't want the kid to grow up with her because I felt that she was just an awful person that I've been trying to get away from for a long time. But now this new thing came up. So I'm going to stay. And then I left. And when I left, it was a physical fight. Um, and you know, I left the next day, and I remember looking back on it going, okay, that was a lesson, because I don't like to look at experiences as mistakes.
Yes.
If you don't learn from them,
Yeah.
then yeah, but if you learn from them, it's a lesson, right? So I try to look at everything as a lesson. So it was like, okay, I'm not going to do that again. Um, and so I always learned from my mistakes, but I didn't realize that um, I was settling in anything, in any relationship I was in any job I was in anything I was doing. I was settling because that's what I deserved. That's apparently where, you know, and now I look back on it and it's like, whew, no, ma'am.
Yeah, yeah. I'm happy to hear that there was a breakthrough. But before I go further and ask about these breakthrough moments, I'm going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
If you want to get started right away to find your voice, download Doreen's free 7-step guide to fearless speaking at doreen7steps.com.
Back now with Iris Goldfeder, and I am totally fascinated and curious all at once. And I'm already amazed at the resilience Iris has talked about in her life, coming into a broken family and also taking on some patterns. But there was a point you talked about where you said to your mom, who said you should be a secretary, you said no, and you had, to me, that was a voice, an inner voice. Like, even though you said, I don't know where that came from, but I want to start back there, that inner voice that you
That made me say no.
yes.
I loved my music. I loved my music, and I wanted to pursue that. So I worked in delis. And then we started a catering thing in one of the delis that I was working at. And I loved food, which is where, you know, gas stove creative comes from. But so it was like a culmination of things. It was um I didn't want her life. I didn't know what mine looked like, but I knew that I didn't want it to look like hers. And when I looked at my life, it was, where, what am I passionate about? Because I was so miserable in every other area. It was like, where is my passion? And my passion was my music. And then it became, but am I good enough for that? Am I good enough to play out? Am I good enough to find a band? Am I good enough? You know, I would go on auditions and throw up, you know, in the car on the way over there, thinking that,
Speaking of stage fright, folks, listen
yeah,
to this.
oh man, yeah, this is, so I used to, I used to throw up before every audition that I had. And then, um, when I finally, you know, got into a band, it was like, okay, now I have to show up for every rehearsal. And even working with this group of people that become your family, right? Because you're working so closely together and it's supposed to be a safe place. I was always, oh my God, what if I sing off key? What if, you know, they're going to throw me out? There was always this like self-defeating voice back there. And then I remember I was in this band called Brave and Crazy, and it was with these phenomenal musicians. Um, Bonnie Parker, not the infamous evil Bonnie Parker, but she's an amazing bass player, and Lee Tobia, and Joey Bruno, and they had this like rock trio, and I was going to front them as Brave and Crazy, and it was a Melissa Etheridge cover band, and something happened when I got on that stage with them, and anytime we played out, you know, it was like they were great. They were the Legionnaires. They did their thing. And then when I would get on stage, it changed. And I felt it, like for the first time, I felt it. And I felt that my presence actually made a difference.
Oh.
And that kind of changed music for me. Because I was like, I am good. These guys want to play with me. These are like established Long Island musicians that people, they're in like the Long Island Music Hall of Fame right now. You know what I mean? And so it was a huge awakening for me that these guys wanted to play with me.
So what I'm getting now is that how the voice gets heard and how it gets witnessed, how it gets received is one, like the context is part of how voice gets to be, more, I guess, as opposed to just getting applause. It was something also that
Yeah.
you felt. Isn't that
Yeah.
something? You
Yeah.
felt it.
And the applause is, don't get me wrong, that's addicting. I mean, you get on stage and, to this day, I get stage fright right before I get on. I'm like, it's not like a panic attack, but it's like, whew, okay, I'm going to get out there. And after I sing the first two lines, I know I'm good, but it's getting those two lines out and making sure that that first note is on key, and that, and I'm always thinking about that, and I can't ever not think about that. And I don't know why. And I don't know if it's an adrenaline thing and that's what makes it even better, or I don't know, but I get that that stage fright. And my last band used to laugh at me because they'd be like, okay, give her 2 minutes because either she's going to throw up, or, or, she has to have her teeny little meltdown. I'm like, it's not a meltdown. It's just like, it's hard. It's hard because now you're the lead singer. So now you're talking to the audience, you're singing, you're bringing all of this in one package, and everyone's looking at you. So they're listening to your words, they're listening to your voice. Even though they're talking, because you play in a club or whatever, they're talking, they're doing their thing, and but they're listening. They can hear. Can they hear if I sing a key, a note off key? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll listen to that recording and be like, oh my God, I was like this much flat. Mm-hmm. They don't know, but I do. So it's a perfectionist thing, I think.
Uh-huh. Well, I think what you've just illustrated for our listeners today is the fact that stage fright doesn't have to stand in the way, that there's a way that you can process it or be with it or understand that there's something on the other side. You just have to go through a little mini turbulence and then you're out there.
Yeah, it's like when it happens, I know that it's going to happen. So I'm like, okay, here it comes. And it was funny. This was like one of my last gigs with that band. And I didn't get stage fright. And I didn't know what to do. I was like, where's that feeling? Crap. I was like, it's not there. So I'm, in the green room, and we're getting ready to go out, and they're looking at me, and I'm like, let's go. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I have no idea what's happening, but let's just go. And that freaked me out that I didn't have it. So it was like, was I not excited about the show? Was I not? I still couldn't even tell you to this day why I wasn't, but I had zero stage fright, and we went out, we did the show. It was great. But I fixated on that. I was like, why didn't I freak out? Why wasn't I freaking out? I'm so used to it. So I don't know.
What I get today is how self-inquiryous, if that's a way you might say it, you're willing to look at yourself and to learn. And that was something you said earlier about every opportunity, no matter what it is a learning for you.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I'm taking away today. But before we come to a close, I want to make sure and come back to gas stove creating, or whatever. How did
Creative.
you creative? Yes, that's it. And so that, what people can, I mean, I've already learned something about you, that you've had this life, there's certain pieces to the puzzle of your life that have come together, and the kind of, I'm just going to go a little bit deeper. The soul, your ability to land inside of yourself and find the way through difficult situations, come to a new understanding, a learning, and make sense out of things. And then I'm going to say perform, but that's just about music. It's more than just perform. It's be,
Right.
just be. And Iris, I have to say, you are yourself. This is so my conversation with you. We have no kind of questions. We're just talking, and you're so real. You're so authentic and able to just show what a model of just being here now is. So thank you.
Well,
Let's
thank
go
you.
back to Gas Stove Creative so that people can figure out what you do and how they can find you and what you could do for them.
Well, you could find me on LinkedIn. You could also find me on Facebook under Gas Stove Creative, Instagram under Gas Stove Creative. LinkedIn is my name, Iris Goldfeder. Excuse me. My website is gasstovecreative.com. It's under construction right now. So, we're in the middle of rebranding and redoing that. But I'm a very heart-centered business. And when I say that I meet you where you are, what I mean by that is, people, there's like a roadmap, right? Like you start here, but you want to be here. Well, if you start here, you're not going to be here. You actually have to do the work, to get there. And so what I do is I meet you here, and then we build the roadmap on how to get you here. And then we execute all the, pieces of it that we need, and we get you to where you are. We also help you find your differentiator. A lot of people don't know what separates them from the crowd. Why would I choose to work with you as opposed to somebody else? And we help them find their authentic voice.
I knew that was going to come. You weren't going to say it. I was going to say it because that felt like what is attractive is lining up with your own passion, your voice, your differentiation, and being able to have your message come from that and articulate it. Wonderful. Well, let's come to a close, but I want to, because you're so in the moment, you might say, you're able to just dance with me in the moment. I'd like you to find what the final words for you today would be in closing. What would you want to say to our listeners?
I guess in light of who your listeners are, we all have a voice, right? And there's always somebody out there that needs to hear our message. We think that we don't have anything to say, or, people don't want to hear what we have to say. And I've found that they do. And if you shy away from that, then you're almost, I don't want to make this negative. I want to keep this positive, but people, let's just put it this way. People are out there who need to hear what you have to say, because what you have to say is important. Your story is important. So work through it. I know it's not easy, but if you do the work, you can get on the other side of it. And then it allows the people to hear the message that they need to hear from you.
Ooh, so it's clear the channels.
Yes, right. Just like get all the muck out, and, why deny them the privilege of hearing what they need to hear from you?
Yeah. And what you do, I imagine, with the digital marketing is to have all those channels that people then can literally step into and have the voice be heard, seen and heard. So thank you so much, Iris, for sharing yourself, your life, your inquiries and your discoveries, and your message.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's been an honor.
Thank you for being with us today for this episode of Find Your Voice, Change Your Life. Each person during interviews shares what has helped them find their voice. You can learn from these guests and find your voice so you can be confident to speak up and speak out. And remember to download Doreen's free 7-step guide to fearless speaking at doreen7steps.com. We hope you enjoyed the show and will return next time. Until then, goodbye for now.